Eric, you know, we've been talking about muscles, and muscles are cool, but what can they do? And that is why at Iron Culture, if myself and Eric can't be champions, well, maybe champions in your heart, we should bring on world champions, and that's why we're honored to bring on today, as we found out the last name, Jessica Buettner, on the channel, an IPF junior world champion. Let's face it, 2020, if it was going to happen, the world championship, there was a very strong possibility of winning her first open world championship. Just an absolute monster lifter. We're honored to have her. More than that, she's been using her platform to educate people that follow her, to help empower them. And so she's one of the, I would say, emerging leading voices when it comes to the powerlifting community.
Yeah, she's just an incredible lifter. She, I think, has a 560-ish total in the 72 kilo weight class in the IPF. She represents Canada. She's a multi-time Canadian national champion, two-time junior world champion, and her, I'm gonna say her freshman debut in the open category, she was right in the running and competing against some of the best lifters in the world. I want to say Isabella von Weissenberg, who we've had on. Fantastic squatter out of Sweden. This is 2019 Sweden World Championships. Placed third in that competition, and then the ever impressive Kimberly Walford won. So immediately competitive, going from the junior division to the open division, and like you said, huge threat. And she just has one of the most impressive deadlifts in powerlifting, I would say, pulling 250 at her body weight of 72. That's an impressive deadlift, regardless of sex division. So she's just absolutely crushing it. And what's more awesome is that she's so down to earth. The way she is positive, is an ambassador for the sport, and everything she does on her Instagram, the way she just speaks to her audience and highlights when people maybe are not as kind and carefree as they should be online. I think it's just she's a real class act. So it's cool to have her on.
Yeah, man. And there's a lot to learn once again, which is one of my favorite compliments the culture gets in general with how we curate some of these guests, is that, you think you're entering for ABC and then you end up walking away with a whole bunch of nuggets, even if you're not interested in the particular topic. The conversations when we had, as an example, Alice McLean and Taylor Atwood, where you think, yeah, okay, genetics and athletics is what we're going to talk about. And there's a lot of kind of mental nuggets of wisdom in there. This conversation, too, I think a lot of people will find it useful and also empowering. The idea that it is a changing face of powerlifting. There's more people doing powerlifting. There's a multitude of reasons. And I think a through thread for us, where once again, Star Wars, people think it's about lightsabers, but it's actually about fathers and sons. That's the through thread. This is a podcast about friendship. And it's also about finding, as Eric would say, the meaning of lift. And we're lifers. Okay, I could speak for Eric. This is one of the times I will speak for Eric. You and myself, we'll always be doing this hoisting thing. And so finding either novel, new, interesting ways to stoke that fire, so to speak, is a very evergreen topic. And we want everyone to incorporate this in some level. It doesn't matter, once again, if you want to be a world champion or you're just a recreational lifter that you find kind of enjoyment, fulfillment out of doing it. We want you to stick with it. And so if we could give you either the multiple keys or other individuals to share their perspectives, that could be cool, man. Because it's been unfortunate, Eric. We've seen this, my man. You said 2013, 2014, even some top level competitors. We've had so many friends stop lifting.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think this is I think Jessica's part of the cult, whether she realized it or not. When she talked about how she kind of casually went to world championships the first time, and then how her appreciation, respect, and I would say perspective on powerlifting has changed over time, because lifting is something she does. We'll get into her medical background, what she's experienced and what she has to do on a day-to-day basis to be alive, and how physical activity is part of that. I think that gives people insight, as well as her athletic background in track and field, that she's going to be lifting, she's going to be doing the damn thing, I think, for the long haul as well. And I think that's a really useful perspective. And this is just for those who have been paying attention. And if you keep paying attention, you're going to see more of this. We've been having a lot of the IPF royalty on, and we plan to keep doing that. We've got some guests lined up. So this is, a cool insight into the perspectives of a lot of the new crop of lifters, and just kind of all the representatives who have made powerlifting a much more rich and environment of all the different types of people who are doing their thing. So, hey, if you like that sort of thing, if you want to know about the life of powerlifters who are really just everyday people, because you don't get to quit your day job when you start squatting a lot, then check this episode out. And we'll keep the banter minimal on this intro because let's just say we get bantery on this episode with Jessica, and she hangs like no other.
There's a lot of power in this episode today, and Eric, I want to demonstrate why. Oh, hey, that's a good shirt, by the way. People can't.
What shirt?
They can't see it. Oh, where'd you get that shirt, man?
This shirt I got from some company. Something like the Three Rascals,
what's it
Four
called?
Rascals, the Rascals.
Okay. Yeah.
Rascal?
My Little Rascals.
My Little Rascals.
Rascal, yeah.
Rascal,
Hey,
KOL.
What do you have on your chest, my man? By the way, left chest.
That's the head of the bull.
Underneath it.
I'm not going to tell you. That's private. But
wow.
It might be basically I'm wearing a shirt. This is actually kind of like an MC Escher picture. I have the same image on my own pec.
Yeah.
I was told I would get free Rascal apparel for the rest of my life if I got a tattoo of one of the shirts. Haven't followed through. So I'm going to try to figure out who to speak to.
Right. Please do not influence or make an impression upon my top Rascal athlete, which is who we got on today.
Eric Helms.
Oh yeah.
What?
Yep. Eric, I'm sorry, man. We're reconsidering things. COVID has me just juggling everything. I want to introduce you to your replacement. So glad, Jessica, you could join us. Yes, you're a very strong powerlifter, but she's also very savvy in multiple ways. And I'm just going to quiz Jessica real quick to demonstrate this to you, Eric.
Okay.
The first question I have for Jessica would be, what's the best weapon in a street fight?
Oh, man. So I guess I work at Walmart.
Yeah.
So if I knew I was going to be in a street fight, I would go to the frozen food section and pick up a frozen turkey. You guys might not know this, but I used to be a hammer thrower, so you just whip that thing around and it's heavy. Go for the damage.
Eric, fantastic answer. And watch. Question number 2. This is going to appeal to your bodybuilding core. What is the best flavor of rice cake?
Tomato basil.
Eric, come on.
I mean, that's definitely up there. It's personally, I go with the salted caramel, but that's just me. Or the caramel cakes, or what? I don't even know what they're. The caramel one.
We're talking Quaker brand, right, guys?
I mean, it's different every country you go to. Yeah. Not everyone has access to your bourgeois rice cakes.
Regional specific. Yeah. So, Eric, my man, I am so glad that I could have you sit down for this because, yes, we spoke about Rascal, cool, whatever. My Little Rascal. I don't know what apparel you're wearing. It sounds like trash. But I do want to tell you something, and that is, this is a weird triangle, and I hate to do this publicly before we really get started, but we need to do this. So obviously, Jessica, Eric is my physique coach. He is my strength coach. He is my heart and soul of my physical development. I am everything thanks to him. You want to know the best advice he ever gave me when it came to lifting or strength training or bodybuilding? Do you want to know what it was?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. He said, turn the structure up on your photos and you immediately look better. And I've never looked better. I'm Eric's life coach. We don't need to go into the details about what that entails. But Eric knows when I say life or spiritual coach, sometimes he's uncomfortable with me saying spiritual. But needless to say, I'm therefore his life coach. Jessica, Eric, is my business coach. And so probably right now, Jessica, you want to tell the audience, everyone listening right now, they know you're a powerlifter, you're super strong, cool, you're smashing records, whatever, but you're savvy, as I said, in multiple ways. Do you want to tell the audience what our new business venture, you don't have to go into specifics, I know it's kind of, there's a proprietary thing going on with us, but go ahead. You're my manager.
I guess I can't say too much. I don't know if I'd full on go with business manager. I was going to go with travel advisor, mostly involving Dubai, some event planning.
Right.
Got some birthday cakes.
Right.
And I might just leave it there.
Yeah. I've been told, so Eric, I've been told by Jessica, I'm going to get compensated handsomely for this.
I think.
Oh, absolutely.
All I got to say is it is hot enough there that you won't need clothes.
Thank you. Yeah. That seems to be what I hear from people that go there, that you don't need clothes. So that's great. Yeah, I'm just really enthused at the opportunity. Jessica, I want to thank you. And Eric, I suppose now, sure, we could go the traditional route of introducing our guest or like whatever.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. And yes, it'll be a very lucrative business venture. I don't know about no clothing, but let's just leave that where it is.
Yeah.
You'll also get some complimentary therapy.
For the PTSD.
I don't know if it'll. Yeah. I don't know if you'll need it, but it's there. So that's a perk. And just thank you for being so cooperative with these business ventures.
Anytime.
I think having the safety net that whatever does happen, you'll be able to deal with it eventually in healthy or unhealthy ways, depending on what happens and whether or not you take up the counseling. I think that's the type of I'm going to go ahead and say conscious capitalism that I personally think we need in this next era of business decisions. So I'm going to say, hey, as your physique coach, as your strength coach, as your posing coach, as your co-owner, I endorse this business decision. So, okay. And I do expect a cut based on that endorsement.
Sure. Yeah. Eric, one minor, and then we'll go on and you can introduce our guests and we could get talking about lifting or whatever. Why do you shirk at me calling us life partners? I just don't understand it. Because like you said, bodybuilding coach, like whatever. I don't want to do this publicly, but like you kind of just put multiple labels on us, but you didn't put a really big label on us. I'm just wondering what's up, man.
So yeah, you guys probably didn't hear this off air. If you are having trouble hearing what Omar Yusuf just said, we have been having some small issues with OBS, Ecamm, this mic. It's all very complicated. We're in 3 different time zones, so certain things come out. So I probably said something you didn't hear. Right now, you just said something I didn't hear. But we have Jessica Buettner on today. Did I say that right?
Sure, yeah. We'll go with it.
We had a long discussion about properly pronounced last names. So I'm here with Omar Yusuf, yep. Isaf, and Jessica Buettner, Botany Downs. Any of those are correct, depending on the current region, time frame, and also how accurate we are.
Yep. And you know what? I usually go with Buettner, but you can go with any of those.
Awesome. So you can be correct or you can be an individual, is what I heard there. And as we know here at Iron Culture, we always choose to be an individual. So Jessica, you lift some weights. And from what I've seen, they seem to be quite heavy compared to most other people who weigh the same amount as you, who are in the same gender division. I should say maybe sex division. You're crushing it. And it's pretty cool. I am very impressed. I know I really wish that COVID wasn't happening right now because I want to see what you could do on the world stage. You're a junior world champion. You're a multi-time Canadian champion. And yeah, welcome to the podcast. Could you tell us a little more about your lifting background and your current lifting endeavors?
My current lifting endeavors. Worlds would have been on this summer. Mm-hmm. That's what I was gearing up for. They're usually in June. They're technically still going on in September now, but Canada has withdrawn, and so has the States and the UK, I think, too. So who knows what'll actually happen? Oh, yes. And then I guess for my background, I always did track and field. Mm-hmm. I actually was on the University of Saskatchewan track and field team for 4 years, and there was kind of some overlap with that because I used to be a pole vaulter, and then I sprained my ankle doing a dumb snowboard trick, and if you know Saskatchewan, you'll think it's way less cool than it seems because Saskatchewan's real flat, like real flat. So Yeah, I got a pole vault career-ending injury from that. And that summer is when I decided I wanted to start lifting weights. I transferred over to shot put as a university track and field event, and I did powerlifting kind of on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And I always had a pretty good deadlift, I think, right from the get-go. It's my squat and bench that have come up more throughout the years, I think, actually, because I always did some weightlifting, Olympic lifting for track and field. Yeah, and I just really fell in love with the sport. It's a great community. People are always so friendly on a local level. One of my competitors lent me a belt on my first meet, which you just would not see in any other sport. Like track and field, they would tell you to F off and kick you in the leg. But as far as powerlifting goes, I've always really loved it. And then, yeah, it really just took off from there. I still did track and field at the same time for about 3 years, I want to say. And then I exclusively did powerlifting after that, and my numbers did go up. And I went to my first Worlds in 2016 as a junior. And to me, it was weird because I was not nervous compared to track and field. I was always way more nervous for track. And then I went to powerlifting Worlds, and it was honestly a great time. And I won the junior division, and I got a deadlift world record. And then I went immediately back that night for a track meet the next day. So it didn't really hit me that powerlifting was actually a big deal until a couple of years later. I get more nervous now for meets than I did then, which is kind of funny.
That's amazing. Yeah, you have some really impressive lifts. For those who don't follow you on Instagram, what are you doing with your life? Change that now. And I think it's also really cool that you have a background in track and field. So throwers are considered strength athletes often. I'd say they're probably more power athletes because the weight of the shot doesn't ever change. But how did your training, was there a lot of overlap when you were in track and field with powerlifting? Is that what got you into it, or were you aware of like powerlifting as a thing? This is a thing. There's some overlap, or did you train for one and that led to the other?
I was already training for shot put, and then we did a lot of weightlifting already, so I kind of just modified my shot put program. Mm-hmm. I was never allowed to do deadlifts though, which is kind of weird. So I had to sneak those in there when my coaches and teammates kind of weren't paying attention. So I didn't post on social media that much back then because of that. There's a lot of overlap.
Were they like, was that a clean? Yeah, I just missed it. I missed the clean. I just went too heavy. Sorry.
Yeah.
Love it.
Actually, though, I would do that sometimes.
So
it's
how much?
Pull.
Absolutely, it's just a clean pull. How much Olympic weightlifting did you do? And did you ever think about pursuing that competitively? What made you go with powerlifting?
I always knew I wouldn't be that great at Olympic lifting. You just know sometimes. I did do an Olympic lifting meet recently. I think I did well, but as far as snatch goes, I'm just bad at that, and I don't think I'll ever get to that high of a level with Olympic lifting. I did a 100-kilo clean and jerk, and maybe 59-kilo snatch, which is a 12-year-old snatched more than me at the same meet. So
I'm pretty sure most coaches would say
12-year-old.
a 59% ratio of snatch to clean and jerk is exactly what it should be. I think you're framing it as you have a bad snatch. I think you have an amazing clean and jerk. Look at it that way. I mean, you can clean and jerk 41 kilos more than you can snatch. That's what a clean and jerk, my friend. So let's talk turkey. And I don't mean you throwing turkeys out of the frozen aisle of Walmart. You gave us the numbers on your Olympic lifts. What are these powerlifting numbers? And actually, for the throwers who listen, tell us your best throws too. I'm curious.
Oh, yeah. My best, I'll start with my bench because it's the worst. My best bench in competition is 102.5 kgs, which is 230 pounds. No, 225 pounds.
Yes, it's
I'm not too sure.
220,
about the
226.
Yeah. It's two biscuits. It's two Canadian or North American biscuits, I should say. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, North American for sure. Freedom units, I'm not too sure about. Squats, my best squat is 210, so that's 463 pounds. And then deadlift is 250 kilos, which is 550 pounds.
Word.
Yeah.
So those are pretty good. So and how far were you throwing when you were still a thrower?
Not super far. Like for the shot put, I think 1350 or something like that. And then for hammer, I threw around 45.
Mm-hmm.
Or wait, I think maybe I might have hit 49 meters in one of my last comps. I can't remember.
Awesome. Yeah. So a little brief story of Eric's potential, where I made a decision that probably did not help my career. I remember looking up. So I did track and field in high school, and I wanted to be a 100-meter sprinter because that's cool. And the coach said, "Here's the thing, Eric, you're not fast." And I said, "Agree to disagree." And then I tried out for the 200 meters. And he said, "So here's the thing, Eric, you're still not fast. It's just twice as long." And he said, "But if you can maintain this relatively slow pace for a full 400 meters, maybe you'll do okay." And I was a decent 400 meter runner. I think I ran like 51 to 53 at my best. And the 400 meters is not cool. It's not fun. And I hated it. And I remember looking up from dry heaving after running repeated sprints one day over at the throwers. And while I was doing basically, walking for 30 seconds before I did another repeated 400 meters and getting yelled at for not having my hands on your head, which, by the way, scientifically we've now found is worse than putting your hands on your knees. I looked up, and the repeated drills that the throwers were doing was grilling sausages and then throwing things. And then when they got tired of that, they went to go lift weights. And at the time, I didn't realize what I'd missed out on. But here I am today, pursuing Olympic weightlifting despite the fact that I am not going to be good at it, and wishing, maybe that moment when I was throwing up food while they're eating food, hating what I'm doing while they're just throwing shit in the park, lifting weights and having fun, I could have made another decision, but I didn't. So here we are.
Oh yeah, I mean we definitely did that on our throws group too. I mean, I distinctly remember a time where we're training and then we stopped for a hamburger break. And that's just a thrower thing to do. But if you'd have chosen that route, your body composition would have had something else to say about it. I don't know if bodybuilding would have went the same way had you had the thrower background.
Well, I'd have more muscle. I don't, and I would probably, I mean, the thing is back then I'd say whatever the hell I wanted anyway. I didn't get here through, like, I didn't even get into it until long after I had strange growing up, like dudes growing up with no influence on their eating behavior just do weird shit. Like I remember I was hungry one day, we didn't have any food around, so lunch was a block of cheese. Because why not? I didn't think anything about it. I'm like some teenager. So I don't really think I don't think it would have changed much, except maybe, I mean, I would have been a bad shot putter, but at least I would have set me up to be a less than bad Olympic weightlifter later,
Right.
Yeah.
Oh man. So is it weird that I still will eat a block of cheese for supper? Like not a whole block, but quite a bit. Like too much.
Yeah. Is that after one of the naps or is that before or what?
Before and after.
Pre-post cheese. Yeah.
One of Jessica's secrets I found out, she takes power naps. After, the 18-hour bicycle ride from home to work. She's like, you know what? I better take a nap. So I'm just trying to figure out the secret formula. Because honestly, I don't know if you caught that, Eric, but she basically just shat on our entire life's goal. Where she's like, yeah, I was like a junior or whatever, 2016. I won it. I didn't think anything of it. I'm like, oh, okay, so accomplishing what myself and Eric would love to do as a lifelong career pursuit meant nothing to you and track was better. Okay, cool. So there's been numerous daggers thrown in this interview. I almost was going to stand up for a second for Eric where you said, I bet your physique would have been. I was like, what is she about to say? What is she about to say about it? Like this, you're about to get canceled, okay? Like, I invited you on. It's been great so far. You come on my boy who has a model physique, highly aesthetic, V-taper for days.
She basically came on the podcast and said, y'all weak, and I heard you're a bodybuilder, but I can't tell. Maybe if you lifted some weights as a kid, you'd have something to do. By the way, I can deadlift more than you. I'm out, and just left. So that's pretty much the cliff notes.
Yep. Hey, speaking of ice cold, what I wanted to talk about briefly, how much did that woman regret giving you her belt where she's like, oh, like, sure, like, it's your first meet, go ahead and use it. And you're like, she just crushed my deadlift by 200 pounds. Like, how did you see the look on her face when you just melted her? Clearly, whatever she lifted was probably half of what you lifted. So can you just walk me through a second by second facial expression of what was going on her face? What was plastered on there?
You know what? Probably nothing, because actually it was Reyeston, who is she has won the World Games in powerlifting. So at that exact meet, she actually benched an unofficial world record for the 72 kgs. So she 100% beat me that day, but so I don't think she was that threatened, but she was just really nice.
So actually, it's a power move on her part. She was like, I don't need this belt to beat you. Why don't you use it?
It looks like you need the belt. Yeah, take this belt.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I just thought she was being nice. She was throwing me shade. Oh, man.
I love it.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit off air. One of the things, I'm just going to say this, and I mean this only as a bodybuilding connoisseur, I think you have an incredible physique. I think you have clearly built a lot of muscle from powerlifting. Is that something that is a goal of yours to also build your body? Or is it just, man, what happened? I started doing this powerlifting thing and I got these lumps in the places where muscles are, you know?
Thank you. And I definitely try to do that on purpose. One thing about powerlifting is a few muscle groups definitely get missed. So I do put an effort to work on those. I find one of them is shoulders. Mm-hmm. And then I also do that because a group that gets hit too much for my personal taste is traps. They just keep growing and they won't stop growing, especially now that I've been setting down the bar so gently in my living room. So I've been trying to do shoulders as much as I can. Mm-hmm. The other thing is abs too. I do like to do abs just so they show up, because I find if I can hypertrophy them a little bit, I don't have to be as lean and you can still see them. And then people think you're athletic, even though you powerlift, which is pretty cool.
Even though you powerlift. Shots fired at many a listener. And they were just a second ago triggered. They're going, oh, your traps are growing. I have read YouTube comments. I know I probably should have read studies, but I've heard someone else repeat endlessly that if you have traps, that's anabolic steroids. This is a conspiracy. Right. You're a juicer. Right. And you just offended me because I thought I was an athlete until you just said that. So I just want to apologize to the Iron Cult right now who's listening. The views expressed by anyone on this podcast only reflect our views if you like them and agree with them. Right. And that's just an official position to always remember. So
yeah. And if you disagree with them, it probably came from Jessica. That way it's just easy. We offload it onto the guest. Nothing comes back to bite us. We no longer get sued. We can have very cordial conversations with our boy, Danny Lennon, and nothing bad will happen in the future, Eric, if you understand what I'm saying. I do want to note that I do think it's incredible at this time, and I'm sure we're just ping-ponging over a bunch of different topics here, but you kind of brought up jokingly the whole traps comments, and I can only assume, once again, female lifters, absolutely, I've seen this, they get way more shit than male lifters. When a guy does something, it's like, oh, cool. When a girl does it, it's like steroids. I'm like, no, you just got emasculated, and you're trying to somehow deal with this, and your worldview got shattered. It's gonna be okay, my man. Out of curiosity, because I read something, Eric, that Kendrick Ferris, I forget the amount of times the WADA tested him. So for those that are unaware, he's an American weightlifter. He's one of the few, correct, Eric, that in the last 25 years went to the Olympics representing the male side of America, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And so I forget, but I could swear that the amount may have been over 100 times. This is an insane amount that he got tested. So all those individuals are like, oh, yeah, it's like tested, but what does that mean? It's like, no, Kendrick, as an example, they have to know your location every single point in time. Can you just walk us through? Because, again, girl, we ain't jealous, but we're just curious. Because Eric and myself want to be in that position to get tested. Like, it's weird. Myself and Eric always carry a vial.
I am jealous, but I'm not hating. I'm not hating, but I'm jealous.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a minor difference. So it's weird. Eric and myself always carry a vial of our own urine because we're just hoping someone asks us for a test. It doesn't happen. It is what it is. But for those that are not world champions like yourself, I think that would be an interesting conversation, honestly. It kind of the whole tested stratosphere and WADA. What are some of the things that you have to do? What are some of the either positions you've been in? Either someone's like, hey, like we need to test you right now. Can you just walk us through that? What it's like kind of being a world-class competitor in a drug-tested sport?
So I'm in the registered testing pool, which means that I do need to report my whereabouts to WADA 24/7. And you always need to have a 1 hour window where they will be able to get a hold of you. And if you miss that, it counts as a missed test, that 1 hour window. And then if you miss 3 of those, it counts as a failed drug test, which is scary to think about. And then usually they test people at competitions as well. Dependent seems to be on placing. If you're in the top 3, you'll get tested. And then they also do random testing as well. I haven't been blood tested yet, but I've been urine tested quite a few times. One time was, it was like 7 p.m. on a Sunday night in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. The middle of nowhere. These 2 drug testers came to my house specifically. Yeah, and I wasn't. You wouldn't expect that at all. It was in the off season too. I wasn't going to any international meets, so they really tracked me down.
I saw those traps.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. They must have seen the internet comments about the traps.
We better test her. Yeah, I just wonder, like, when that happens, it's like, okay, it's whatever, as you said, 7 or 8 o'clock at night. It's like, can I have my parents come over real quick? Because these 2 strangers that have no idea who you are, you want to come to my house and you want to urine test me. Like, I understand this is a legitimate thing, but you understand also that you just messaged me out of the blue, you know?
And the 2 strangers also want to watch you pee in the cup. Actually, just the one stranger usually. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what? One thing I thought of is, what if someone was just really creepy and they just were going around saying that they were drug testers? You would totally 100% believe them. And then they would just be like, I need to take a video, and then you'd be suspicious then. But that's just that's something I've always...
It's weird you mentioned that, because I've been tested multiple times, but I've never competed. So I don't know what that's about.
I wasn't even asked. Like, the same thing happened to me, but I wasn't even asked to necessarily pee. But they did want to watch. I see what happened. Right. I see what happened.
Okay, who's gonna tell him?
Oh, so I figured it out. You don't have to tell me.
Yeah, that's fine. We're quick thinkers here.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to take you up on that PTSD counseling offer that you had. Because it's all happening now. Now I'm actually getting the trauma, now that I realize what happened.
Yeah. It seemed so innocent before, Eric.
They were okay with me peeing, but they never asked. I just assumed. Man. And now I'm also offended, because I actually thought, they must think I'm pretty strong.
Right. You know? That's what I thought, Eric. Oh, man. And hey, can I just say, for those that are curious too, that want to learn a little bit more about the drug testing process and how it has improved, straight up, we have Alex Colliari-Turner. We had him on talking about kind of steroids, the testing process, how things are getting better over time. And it is true, Eric can comment on this better than I can. But in the last several years, I mean, there's been numerous tests of individuals who, I don't know, they thought maybe they were going to be able to get past it, that got caught. So it's a move definitely in the right direction.
Yeah, so it is interesting. There's actually a really big ongoing investigation and scandal in Olympic testing right now, Olympic weightlifting testing. And USADA is one of, kind of going back to the Kendrick Ferris comments, USADA is one of the, basically the way it works with Olympic sports is there's internal testing, and they are governed by the individual countries' governing body, like USADA, for example. That's the United States Anti-Doping Agency, and they've got similar things in each country. So it's Drug-Free Sport New Zealand here. In Australia, it's USADA. You guys can tell me what the Canadian one is, but nonetheless, there you go. And they all then do internal testing, and then when you go to a international competition, it falls under the guidance of someone who's working for IOC. So as an example, when World Championships came to the US, USADA stepped in, and a bunch of people pulled out of the competition last minute, said they were injured. There was a whole lot of failures, and there's actually, I'm forgetting which year, Alex brought it up when he was on, where 5 out of the top 7 people had failed in Olympic weightlifting. And there's a bunch of now retrospective bans that have been going on. So it's kind of crazy that in many ways, at least in well-tested internal countries, you could make an argument that there's probably more drug-free than non-drug-free lifters at the highest level in Olympic weightlifting. And then in other countries, if you were to kind of take a look at some of the things we found out through some of these investigations and allegations, that's not the case. So that's kind of an unfortunate thing, but it is very interesting when you hear about what happens in the countries that do test pretty well. And it's actually pretty impressive, having an athlete locator, basically being able to come up anytime. And I'm sure you don't turn off your phone when you take your power naps, because if they come a knocking, you're asleep, that's a missed test. And people are going to accuse you of it being that they're trend when it's actually just that they're power nap. So you have to be careful, and you also get tested in comp. I've been there as the athlete gets to have their coach with them if they want. So I've been there when Bryce has been tested at a World Champs. I have actually been tested internally for. I don't know why. Maybe they just felt bad for me. But I think I placed
Hey, come on, man. We'll test you.
I think I placed second in 2014 New Zealand nationals. And the junior guys lifted more than us. We're just glad they were too young to be in the open. And I was among a couple of people who got tested on the day of. And I was like, hey, this counts. Everyone thinks I'm on gear, right? And they're like, no, just doing our due diligence. I'm like, fuck. Oh. So anyway, another thing, Jessica, you are a diabetic. Is that correct? Or you are someone with diabetes. I need to use patient-specific language. You're not a diabetic. You're an amazing human. You happen to have diabetes. How does that impact your experience with drug testing, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, being a type 1 diabetic, I have to use insulin to live. So
you cheater.
It is, I know it is a substance that's banned for anyone who's not diabetic, and I do still need a therapeutic use exemption for it, which is a document signed by my diabetes doctors, and it includes lab work, and it includes some blood sugar data, and it shows specific dosages of insulin I can use and in which exact types. Mm-hmm. I would actually like to try a newer insulin that would work better for me, but I don't want to go through the process of getting a new therapeutic use exemption for it. So I'm kind of stuck with what I've got now, but maybe this year would be a good year to work on that, I think.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's a relatively laborious process to the point where you don't want to deal with even getting necessarily a better therapy for you. Is that so? What is that process like, if you don't mind me asking, of getting that TUE?
It was a really lengthy process for me because they recently replaced the chief medical director for the IPF, and the one who was there before was not very understanding. He actually. I submitted my first therapeutic use exemption probably 4 years ago, I want to say. And he only granted it to me for 1 year. And he said that there was no proof that I would need insulin for life in response. So I was not thrilled with that because obviously it's not true. Like, there's not going to be a cure for diabetes in 1 year, man. I was mad, and especially because I drove a long ways to go see my physician. Mm-hmm. And it took probably 2 whole months to get the therapeutic use exemption submitted. I now have one that's for 10 years, which is good, but it also took about 8 weeks to put together and about 20 hours of driving for me because I used to drive 5 hours to work once or twice a week. So I had to drive into Saskatoon and make special appointments and fax in all these forms, and it was a really big ordeal. Mm-hmm. If my doctor's also not super good with the faxes and stuff as well, so it would be easier for people who live closer to their doctor. And the person that the new chief medical director for the IPF is actually seems quite good. So I'm happy with that.
So just for the listeners who you are intimately familiar with because you have to be alive, your protocol, your experience, your diagnosis, and your physicians. For the listener who may not know the differences between type 1, type 2 diabetes, what the treatments require, and their causes, could you share a little bit, if you don't mind, of course, about about your experiences, your needs, and how that affects you?
Yeah, for sure. So I think most people are more familiar with type 2 diabetes, which generally happens to people who are a bit older. It's a disease of insulin resistance. So most people who start out having type 2 diabetes still produce insulin. It just either doesn't work properly or they don't produce enough of it. And that causes a lot of problems with blood sugar, and a lot of them can actually take pills for it for a long time that help with those problems, but some end up on insulin as well. Whereas type 1s, it's actually an autoimmune disease. So your own body attacks itself. It attacks your insulin-producing cells, and then you don't have any anymore. So basically from that moment on, it's your job to be your own organ. So you have to inject insulin multiple times a day. And it's really tricky because there's a lot of complicating factors in that when you don't have a functioning pancreas at all. So it is kind of considered the bad type of diabetes. I get that all the time. It doesn't really bug me, but it's kind of true because it's way more invasive. Mm-hmm. You'll never see a type 1 diabetic just on pills. We always have to inject insulin. Mm-hmm. Otherwise we'll die.
So have you ever thought about telling the beta cells just to pull themselves up by their bootstraps and just start producing insulin again? I mean, maybe if you worked on it for that year, you wouldn't need to take it if you just tried harder. Have you ever considered that as a potential therapeutic option?
Yeah, I've been punching myself in the stomach for 11 years to try to give them a kickstart, but it hasn't been working.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, I think this is probably just a difference of, maybe
opinions.
Opinion, Yeah. So,
yeah.
I'm sure if you just keep trying, maybe one day you won't need insulin. But
He was right. Yeah.
It's up for debate. I don't know what you think about that, Omar.
Yeah, I mean, Jessica, out of curiosity, you don't have to share the person's name, the previous medical director, but out of curiosity, what was the starting initial of his first name? Let's go with that.
I could find that info for you, but I don't have it off the top of my brain.
Because I was going to say, Eric, I think that's the guy. Watched me, wanted to,
right,
multiple times.
No.
Yeah. Just the personality seems very similar. Yeah, yeah. We'll figure that out after the episode. Anyways, just a small aside.
Yeah, we'll do that off air.
Yeah. I do. Yeah. What were you gonna say, Jessica?
I can give you his contact info if you want.
Well, I'm suing his ass, so yeah,
please.
Iron Culture is about to be rich. Yeah. I also just want to note, Eric, that. So, of course, sure, we could say genetics, you and myself, like why we're not world champions, hard work, whatever excuses people hurl at us. But I now know the real reason why I could never be a champion, and that is just reliability. When they say that you have to let WADA know every single hour of your existence where you'll be, if I can't even tell my mom what time I'll be home, there is a 0% chance I would be able to be reliable. I would get the 3 strikes within like a week. It's like, dog, you're canceled. Like you're done. You tested positive. I was like, ooh, that's hard. Does that impact your social life or anything else? It's like, hey, I'm traveling to Alberta. I forgot to message them. Guess I get a strike. Like, is that actually because, not, once again, I'll let you speak for yourself. But the through thread I'm noticing here is lifting is lame. Where it's like, I wanted to be a track athlete, pole vaulting. And I'm going to give a reference real quick because I know, Jessica, this is for you. You like some of that emerging system style training. Mike Teixeira sent me a message. Shout out to Mike Teixeira saying he likes the music analogies. Mike, this one's for you, where you're literally like Jaco Pastorius, the bass player, where until he injured his arm, he was a drummer and he broke his hand playing football. And so he had to pick up the bass. And so he went from potentially being just another drummer to the greatest bass player of all time. That's what happened with pole vaulting. Even still, you talk that shit about lifters like it's lame, like I didn't care how to meet next. You said, which is the truth, honestly, for you. I could totally see that. You want to switch your medication, but just the whole process is a drag, quite honestly. Like it's a huge hurdle for you. This whole testing thing, I get it's very important, but is it a major inconvenience? Like you have to figure out your whole life around this? Because it seems to me, as an outsider, once again, I've already failed in my mind.
It's super annoying for sure, but most of the time I'm just like putting stuff in my phone, hoping they don't judge me. I'm just like,
McDonald's again, the third time, Jessica?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
they start being judgmental to you, like where you go to eat and what you choose. Like,
yeah, like you've been at a buffet for 8 hours. Like, what are you doing? But yeah, stuff like that. Actually, it was super annoying last year because I actually was a relief pharmacist, so I would travel to different cities pretty much every single day or multiple times a week. And I would do like probably about 20 hours of driving a week to different cities to work. So putting all that info in my phone was just such a daunting task, especially because you have to enter all the addresses and you're in like a small town and you have literally no idea where anything is. And that was a pain. But otherwise now it's pretty good because my life is a little more settled. So that's been good.
well, I want to, talk with you, Jessica, about that good side powerlifting. Because look, there's some people that they're on the precipice now. They're thinking to themselves, okay, like this lifting sounded good. I could get a good physique like Jessica, this and that. And now they're kind of stepping back. You entered kind of powerlifting, I would argue, during a later period. Myself and Eric, several years before, we saw kind of the meteoric rise of participants. So when you said your first Worlds event was 2016, by that point, there were a lot of entrants. Can you kind of just talk to me about you starting out? I know you're lifting kind of, throughout, it sounds like high school and so forth, and then track before doing powerlifting. But can you talk to me about the early period, your experiences, and then how that's changed over time, let's say 2016 versus 2020?
Yeah. So in 2016, I didn't realize that powerlifting, what it could mean to me. It actually is. I think powerlifting is awesome, and I just laugh looking back now at how casually I was looking at that first world championship because it actually is a really big deal. And you know what? After I had won the junior worlds, I started getting I started making different connections with people in the community. I actually got a job, probably based on that because I actually had a deadlift world record on my resume, which most people just, I don't know I didn't know whether to put it on there or not. I was thinking to myself, is this stupid? But no, actually, I got the job, sort of, I guess indirectly, the job I have now because of it. And then from there, I just started to like lifting weights a lot more than I liked my track and field training. Even though it was really fun being on a university team sport, I didn't have the same passion for track and field anymore. And I started to get that passion for lifting. And then I actually went to, I think, North American Championships and did really well there. And I started making more and more friends in powerlifting. And then those became a really good time. And my training just kept going really well for powerlifting, even when track didn't. And then I ended up going to fast forward to Worlds in 2018. It was my last junior Worlds. That one, I won, but Chloe Dublin, I don't know if you know who that is, but she's a really strong 72 kilo lifter. She was actually injured for that one. And I was a little disappointed because it would have been super, super close. And I was really excited to meet her. We had actually blocked each other on Instagram, so we couldn't see what we were lifting.
Yeah.
And so that was really fun, and I'm certain that we'll meet up again. But and then the year after that into the Open, so 2019, I'm no longer doing track and field. I'm exclusively doing powerlifting. My numbers went up a lot, and going to Sweden for IPF Worlds was honestly, it was insane. I'd never been overseas for a powerlifting meet before. And man, it was wild. There was a huge crowd going up against all of the 72s. Like Kimberly Walford is actually my hero and the reason that I got into powerlifting. So competing against her and coming so close was actually an unreal experience for me. And then Isabella as well. And there, honestly, that Anna Rosa Castellane too, like people that I had always looked up to from 4 years before. It was so awesome to get to compete against them. And oh man, I was so fired up for Worlds this year, and I'm just sad I'm sad they're canceled, but I'm happy because it's not safe and Corona and it wouldn't be safe to travel. But at the same time, I'm just wondering what could have been, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've got a question for you. So you've had and this is a little spoiler alert for the future, because we're going to have another guest who can speak to this. But I think this is you're almost a good archetype for what many lifters are experiencing with the growth of the sport, who come into it and they find their motivations change. So initially it was like, oh, I'm a track and field athlete, did worlds very casually, I'm a good powerlifter, that was cool. Oh wow, I'm realizing what this can become. I'm a junior world champion. Now I go to the open, and now I'm in the mix, and then I'm at that precipice. I'm right there. I think 2020 Worlds, I've got a really good shot, and you had a good shot in 2019, don't get me wrong. In 2020, I've got this could be my year, and it's canceled. From the outsider's perspective, as you talk, it sounds like you've had points where this is a cool, fun hobby. Now it's the main focus. I'm the champion. I'm moving into the open, and then I'm not able to compete. I am able to compete. Do you find that your motivations have changed, and have you struggled between being more intrinsically and extrinsically motivated by competition versus just for the love of it? What does that look like for you in kind of your motivational frame of mind over the last 4 years?
Great question.
I would say my motivation to train is pretty high, because it's helps me regulate my blood sugars. So, and then I'm also competitive, so I do like to lift heavy, but I'm thinking it's maybe more motivated by competitions than I know, because for competitions, 8-12 weeks out, I'm so dialed in. Compared to now, I'm just I do still lift heavy, but it's not the same level of intensity in every level of my life. Like nutrition, sleep, social life changes even before competitions. So right now, my motivation is just to stay healthy, build some muscle, and use this as an opportunity for growth. Hopefully get stronger along the way, but I'm not going to push myself too hard, because I actually did kind of injure my back a little bit recently. So I just want to avoid injury and try and get stronger for this summer.
Totally. One thing I'm wondering, because I think from what it sounds like to me, like your car's running. And then when it comes to being 12 weeks out, this is going to show how little I am not a car person. You hit that turbo NOS boost and you start going even faster, right? You know? It's like holding down, I should use a different thing. You're Mario, you're going. And you can hold down B when you need to. I think a lot of people, they struggle with when they do get that supercharged boost of competition drive, then they lose some of their motivation to train otherwise, or they don't have the same connection to it. One thing I've seen is a lot of people that started in like the 2013, 2014 era just are not around anymore in the sport now, which I think is unfortunate. There was, a change in what was competitive in powerlifting right at the time, and it kind of took the wind out of their sails, or they trained really hard and hurt themselves and now physically can't compete, or they're intimidated by the prospect of trying to do what they think they need to do because they're very much focused on other people. But it sounds like to me, because of your perspective of, hey, I need to be physically active to regulate this is a part of your life. Like, you're going to be training. You've had an athletic background. But this is just kind of a boost, and maybe it doesn't create as much of a push and pull or kind of this empty nest syndrome, if you will. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I would say so. I won't lie, I'm definitely a little lost right now with everything being canceled. But yeah, I would say so. The motivation's ultimately to stay healthy. And then I like how I look when I'm powerlifting, which I absolutely never thought I would, because when I started, the stereotype is that powerlifters, they're just not in that good of shape. But then I looked at all the female lifters in my own weight class and under, and I just thought that I wanted to look like them. And I love building muscle. And actually, powerlifting has made me happier with my body than I ever was before.
That's awesome. Amazing. Yeah, that definitely comes back. Then we've talked about this a ton on Iron Culture before, Omar. How the stereotype of what a powerlifter is very much dependent on who are the dominant voices. And this is why I think representation is so important, and having a more diverse representation, a larger pool of people doing powerlifting. But in a time where it was very multiply super heavyweight dominated, like the stereotype was, oh yeah, you could go become fat and be a powerlifter. And it's like, actually, I'm 5'6". I'm never going to be a super heavyweight. Why would I do that? Or whatever. So I think I think there's that stereotype is changing. You know, when those comments are made online, more people see it as kind of this old joke that don't take it that seriously, because there are so many representatives in powerlifting who could, you know, cut a little more and be on a bodybuilding stage, or just have a great walk around physique, but are obviously not, you know, breathing hard between sets of bench warm-ups, you know. So I think that's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Eric, I would posit and I would put forth that there are no weight classes in the jungle. So that's a cool story. But I will say my experience, 2012, this is no joke. The difference that you see, how it evolves over time, I can concur exactly with what you said, Eric. Sean, who owns Fortis, the gym that I went to, Jessica actually went to Fortis, said, and I quote, "Not a bad gym."
It's an awesome gym.
No, it's awesome. You know, I don't now see. I didn't want to overstate, so I thought I'd just say it's at least pretty good. Sean's the dude. Sean is actually runs counter in a lot of ways. He's kind of anachronistic, and I love the dude. So he was super cool. But the initial enclave, Eric, of powerlifters at Fortis, because Fortis was a strength gym, was exactly what you said. Like when I came there, I was like maybe 175. Basically, I was told by essentially everyone, you want to get stronger, you need to gain 100 pounds on your frame. No exaggeration. And I'm like, guys, I was 220 before. Like my first bulk was not a good bulk. My mom called me fat because she's the only one to keep me honest. And that was like 45 pounds. You want me to gain 55 on top of that? I was walking upstairs and I was having trouble breathing. But that kind of was the thing, Eric, just to concur. And that's why I asked you, Jessica, about kind of the 2016. A lot of the bad learned patterns where it almost was a rite of passage. This is another thing I'll say quickly too. Now that a lot of stuff with pain science, you know, the biopsychosocial model of pain, cool, versus structural model, it almost was a rite of passage amongst these old heads. Their injuries, their badges of honor, because they indicated what, Eric? I didn't give up. I kept lifting. I'm like, no, you can't walk now. Like you're hobbling. I don't understand why you being inept and incapable of continuing to do the thing you love while also getting potentially type 2 diabetes is this badge of honor. Like I don't understand it whatsoever. So it was very interesting to see that kernel of, you know, it's like the niche. And I could say that early powerlifting to me had a much larger intersection probably of the fandom with monster trucks and maybe other things than it does now. It's been wild, you know? It's been wild, Eric. Yeah.
They're also Gravedigger fans. I love it. Yep.
Yeah, Gravedigger. So, yeah, I guess, let me ask you this, Jessica, what you said, it's like your inspiration, but I also want to look like that, so it kind of comes together. Can you talk to us a little bit about the role that you've evolved into in terms of being one of the ambassadors of the sport? I said this before, and I will stand by this, okay? Jessica already is a notable figure in the game. When, not if, Jessica smashes a 600-pound conventional pull, she'll be at the apex, just at the tippity top. Because, again, there is a negative stigma associated with sumo. You know, your physique, you're in shape. So it's not one of those, yeah, but like, what body weight did you pull? It's like less than you, buddy, would be the answer. So talk to me about your evolving role of you being one of the representatives, lead representatives, and being an inspirational figure, where I could even tell you as a small microcosm, Jessica, when you joined Rascal, you know, and some people bought the shirts, like we received DMs, like cool, all these things. And some people, like someone said to me, like, oh, I bought a shirt because like Jessica was rocking and whatnot. I look up to her, you know, is what she said. It wasn't like, she's like pretty strong, or like, yeah, she's got a good physique. I look up to her, you know, which means that you're one of the role models. Can you talk to me about that position a little bit? I do really appreciate, and it's rare, it's like Omar's getting serious in an episode, but how you leverage and utilize your platform to try and educate people, your background, being a pharmacist. I saw your creatine Instagram stories, how you try and essentially set the record straight. And so in a space where essentially just looking good and lifting a lot of weight will get you a lot of followers, right? Like this isn't necessary to keep your clout. It's things that you're actively choosing to do, which is where my respect grows for you. Can you just walk me through kind of being a role model, what you hope to achieve with your audience, so to speak? Because I think that's a very powerful position to be in.
Well, one thing I want to show is that powerlifting is a great sport to get into because it's so empowering to work towards a goal of getting stronger, and it's so much fun. You'll make a lot of friends along the way. And then one thing that's cool about powerlifting is that I stuttering. I genuinely do think that building muscle is awesome for everyone. I think it makes everyone look better. One thing that I wanted to emphasize is that you have a choice with powerlifting. Is you don't have to follow a super strict diet in order to get strong. It doesn't matter what you look like. But at the same time, if you choose, you can look really good by stepping up the accessories and doing more cardio and watching your diet. But once again, that's optional and it's up to your own personal beliefs. I think getting stronger is something that's so valuable for everyone, especially women in this day and age. And I actually think the powerlifting body type, the thicker body type, I absolutely love it. And I think it's a body type that suits people really well in general, especially in this day and age too, because everyone struggles with diet and everyone struggles with how they think they look. So it's awesome to be in a sport where how you look doesn't matter, but you can look fantastic. And then the other thing too is that I do like to set the record straight when people are being a-holes. I do like to post when people are being assholes on my story, because I think that people need to know what's right and what's wrong. And I like to laugh at people when they're being mean. I don't know about you guys. Do you do that on your social media at all?
Eric's above it all, unfortunately.
I know. I just cry and shame and complain to people in my personal life in private. But I absolutely love when you highlight the comments of people who, decide they need to make a comment about your physique, or like, I love the ones that are like, just so you know, you look like a man and people aren't gonna, be a fan of that. It's like, Jesus Christ. I think it's, we talked about this a little bit way back when we had the women in powerlifting. We had Steffi Cohen, Natalie Hansen, and also the bench teacher herself.
Miss Frizzle.
132 pounds of power, Miss Frizzle, Jennifer Thompson on. And they shared some of their experiences there. And just kind of that's the one thing that always gets me. I know I'm trying to be nice when I don't need to be. I know people respond kind of knee-jerk, and they have this thing, and they just like, I'm going to put that into my thumbs. But it's just amazing to me that the presumption people have where their opinion on what you should look like just is like, hey, let me tell you. And it's just like, really? So I love that you highlight that. I think that's it's a good thing for everyone who has those knee-jerk responses. They can be like, I should check myself, And also I think it gives, more importantly, probably, all the people who get those comments, it gives them confidence to say something and also to not take it that seriously, which I think that all of that's really, really good. So I like it.
Nice. Yeah, I definitely think none of that should be taken seriously, or for the most part responded to seriously, because that only leads you down the rabbit hole. It always blows my mind how people will they'll DM you to say you don't look good or pick apart something about your physique. Like, I don't walk around saying, you got small calves, you need to work on your chest, you're too skinny. I don't do that. Like, why do people do that to women?
What the fuck?
Why do guys do that to women?
I think
Eric,
I wasn't
disconnect this
talking
call.
about you.
Eric, disconnect this call, man.
Your point is well
done
made,
here, dude.
but that counseling that you offered of PTSD, Omar is definitely going to take heed of. It's all right. Okay.
Why'd we bring this world champion on?
It's to denigrate
I
your
wasn't
physique.
talking about you guys, I swear.
Oh, hypothetical situation. Right.
Hypothetical.
Got it.
No, it is amazing how the anonymity, and that's why Instagram, the individuals that are emboldened to leave a comment, my personal favorite, because it's a kind of, and I do have to give a shout out to Greg Knuckles, the way I've heard, because I first heard it from him, describe it, I think on his Facebook, with the way that he uses his platform or his Facebook or social media, it's kind of like his living room. So there's a basic assumption of civility that is understandable. And that's what it's like, oh, you're trying to censor me? It's like, nah, man, you came into my living room and you shat on me. And my favorite, actually, what you do, and I gotta admit, I do it on occasion where someone will say something like whatever, like who's this Muslim or like whatever. And so you just highlight it and do a comment. My favorite is on occasion, I think I've seen this with you, where where you highlight someone or you maybe say a comment and then they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like they feel like they're the one getting attacked. It's like, no, you just came at me with daggers. And then when I highlighted how ridiculous this is, or basically, hey, it's all light banter, bro. So I just responded. We're having fun, right? Back and forth. You can't take it. It's kind of interesting how that works out. It actually reminds me of one small example of this guy. He said something that honestly, it was, let's say, racially offensive. And then he said, you triggered bro or something. And then he started spamming my Instagram. And he left like 9 comments in a row, like just like that. And it was showing up like pop, 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 pop. And I said, hey man, if you keep doing this, like I'm going to block you because you're spamming my feed. And then so he kept doing it. And then I just blocked him. And then in a private forum on like kind of a bodybuilding.com misc, Eric, he made a thing. It was like this snowflake or whatever got triggered, and someone tagged me. I came into it. I had the screenshots. I'm like, no, you left 30 comments in 10 seconds. That's called being annoying. Like when I block you, it's understandable, and it totally backfired against what he expected because he's like, look how triggered this person is. Like, no, you don't understand the basics of human contact. You know, you're atypical in your socialization. Like this, you should have learned this in kindergarten, but it somehow just missed you. So respect to you, Jessica. I enjoy it.
Oh man, yeah, that is fun. I actually I made the mistake of not blurring people's names out for a while. I actually got a couple of death threats out of that. Internet death threats that probably don't mean anything, but yes, I don't do that anymore, but it's still fun without their names in there.
Minus a few death threats, it's all in good fun. On that note, I would just advise next time someone knocks on your door and says they're going to be the urine tester, just get their ID since you have gotten death threats. Yeah, you know.
Have someone else there.
So speaking of highly valid comments on social media, I've heard from the deepest, darkest place of the internet that you became a pharmacist so that you could beat drug tests, and that is a secret mission. Just want to hear it from the horse's mouth here. Is that true? Is that why you became a pharmacist? I'm sure that was your motivation. I already know the answer, but I'll listen to your lies.
It was my primary motivator. But then once I actually got into pharmacy, I realized it's a lot harder. We really keep a close eye on those drugs. So there's no getting any of that. But it was originally my primary motivator for becoming a pharmacist. Yes.
Okay. And I've also heard that you are a quote-unquote type 1 diabetic, but maybe you somehow gave this to yourself earlier in life as a way to get insulin, and then combine that with the pharmacy thing. How do you respond to these logical and indefensible accusations? I mean...
Radioactive spider, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I didn't say which... Yeah, I didn't say which 11 years I was punching myself in the stomach, so...
This is true.
Was it before or after?
It wasn't an effort to cure it. You're like, I'm going to get these beta cells. I'm going to show them just how beta they are. And just punched them into submission. I loved it.
Oh, man.
Alpha, you are the beta.
That's right.
Jessica, you're going to be perfect for our upcoming Masculinity in Crisis tour that myself and Eric are going to run. Of course, this pandemic that happened in 2020 has just temporarily put things on pause. To be honest, we're not here to spread conspiracy theories. We're all for evidence. It seems like, and we have yet to truly hear from our reptilian overlords, but that this pandemic occurred to stop, Eric, our Masculinity in Crisis, because they knew it was going to change the very face of culture as we know it. But you'd be perfect to join us as a triumphant almost. And we would have, individuals that would attend. Eric, go ahead. Sorry, you're as the co-alpha. I think it'd be best if you just explain to her what our Masculinity in Crisis tour is.
Well, it's based on the facts or feelings that men are in fact losing their identity in our society and power, respect, all the things that our society depends on. But Omar, I'm actually a little confused because we previously had a policy that we wouldn't allow women as a part of the Masculinity in Crisis tour.
Dude, she punched herself in the stomach for 11 years. That's pretty badass. Like, she gets the pass,
I'm down with that.
Okay.
But anyway, unfortunately, fake virus, and now we can't do it. So we're left instead to just kind of talk about this very real thing we're going to do and had planned before on our podcast. But yeah, we could have a special guest, maybe an ally that we would invite who could cross the aisle, and maybe we could acknowledge that I guess there is some reason to have the other sex in our, world, I guess. So yeah, offers on the table, Jessica. I'm sure you're interested and like the idea, and just you don't have to answer now. You can let us know after, but if you've got any interest, it's on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, Masculinity in Crisis Tour, count me in.
That's the best response ever. I love it. Oh man, that sounds terrible. But on air, I'm going to say something nice. Yeah.
I don't know how to respond to this. It's all coming down range so quickly. Yeah, so I just want to say quickly, Jessica, you know what I think is the coolest aspect about your 2016 win, junior win?
What is it?
The headband.
Nice.
Right?
Oh god.
You got to bring that back. So I'm picturing a crop top, headband. I don't know what the IPF allows. We'll make it happen. I do want to talk now a little bit about training because, you hoist some weights and you drop that. That's why we're just talking on the phone. And you dropped the emerging system strategy. I was like, "Ooh, okay, yeah, no, I thought so. Yeah, she knows her stuff." Okay, there's just these, because I think not that there's an assumption once again, and we had a great conversation with Taylor Atwood, Ellis McLean. Bro, you got great genetics. Like, you just put in the work, but they ignore the effort. So the mental effort, how you frame your own training, and kind of what we spoke about off camera, where you've had a lot of feedback over time to know what kind of works for you, what doesn't work for you. So can you talk with us, Jessica, about your training overall, how it's evolved over time, some of the core principles? I know you have a coach right now, but since, since the days of pole vaulting and, hot dogs and shot put, or whatever you shot putters do, to now, can you just talk us through how training has evolved?
Yeah, for sure. So before, when I went into that first Worlds in 2016, I actually did my own training based off of, I think, something I found on bodybuilding.com, where it's the principle of just, what I did was basically dial up the intensity for, I think I only did 12 weeks leading into the competition. I lowered the reps, and then I would basically do a certain number of reps each week and try and add weight each week for each exercise. And once I couldn't do that, I would lose a rep. And it actually worked really well for the most part, but it's not the smartest way of training for sure, especially because I was also doing lots of shot put training that probably interfered with that and everything. And that was just, I went into that one without a coach. But then after that, about a year and a half later, that's when I met my coach, Justin Reason. Well, actually, he coached me at Worlds that day, but he didn't do programming for me yet. Mm-hmm. And what we have been doing, it's evolved over time, but now it's become sort of like emerging strategy style programming, where you kind of repeat a training microcycle until you see progression and then move on from there. And it's a lot of, the next week is always based on how I have responded to the last. Mm-hmm. So that style of training, like if I have a terrible week, then it might be time to dial it down the next week if I feel like garbage. And it really just helps to kind of get maximal progress, I feel. Especially because we always modify things very individually, and we don't really have a set it's very fluid. The numbers, like I always have numbers that I want to hit at certain times, but I'm not super focused on those as long as I do hit them at some point in time, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things I love about the kind of the emerging strategies approach that Mike T developed is I don't necessarily recommend it to just your average lifter getting into things, because you can probably make slightly faster progress with maybe a little more variation, a little more like that linear approach you took the first time you did it, where you're like, hey, I'm going to keep loading weights, and once I stall, I'll just drop the reps, something like that. It allows you to push a little further. But once you get to a certain level as a lifter and you have a lot of years of lifting under your belt, which you do because you were lifting before you even got into powerlifting, and now you've been a very high level powerlifter for 4 years, is like the ability to make progress at all and measure it becomes very difficult and harder and harder and harder. So if you find something that does produce progress, you kind of want to just be like, yep, I got the map in the cave and I got the pen light and I'm going to stick with it. Because that kind of grass is greener mentality really only makes sense, or at least I should say is less of a problem if you're not like fully program hopping when you're like a novice or an intermediate. I remember like always feeling like I can get faster progress. I can get faster progress. And I probably didn't make the best decisions, and I know a lot of people don't. But so much works early on, and there could be a gap between what your like minimum measurable progress is and like your best optimal gains. But I find at a certain level, you have to get a lot right to make any progress. So I think the emerging strategies fits nicely with more experienced lifters, because you're like, all right, we've dialed something in. We know this works. When it stops working, or when it's created some progress, I've peaked. That's when I'll adjust. So I do think that's an interesting perspective. It kind of turns some of the normal sports science concepts on its head a little bit, but I dig it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Obviously, yeah, I definitely think that the most important thing for beginners is adherence. Obviously, because I mean, look at my bodybuilding.com endeavors before Worlds in 2016. Like, that wasn't anything special or good, but because I was adherent to it and I was sort of new to lifting, I think it worked well. And then as soon as I got an actual coach, things went upwards a lot faster from there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to say, I want to know how or what your training will evolve like in the future, Jessica, because I know you basically kind of have a gap year where there's no world competition. And you know what I love that you said essentially that if you're to train to win the hypertrophies, that you train differently. Because Eric, I wish if I could teleport, Eric, I think to myself, it'd be cool if I could just teleport Eric here. But there was a time I had that powerlifting roundtable. It was actually with Russ Candido, Silencio Miguel, and then Bruce Crawfish, well-known Canadian powerlifter. I don't know if you know Bruce Crawfish, Jessica, but he's a large lad. Yeah. Bruce Crabshack, he's also known as. But yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So they're all on. Crab Shack, yeah, aka Pizza Hut's #1 employee. And I'm sure he could elucidate on that. But we had all these lads on, Eric, and I asked the question, and I thought it was going to be a great opener. You know, when we asked a question on Iron Culture, and I kind of look at that twinkle in your eye, I'm like, ooh, Eric dropped a good bomb there. Like, that's a conversation starter. Anyways, like, Russ is a jack dude. Bryce also is training, for strength, but there is a consideration for hypertrophy, Candido, all that stuff. I said, all right, guys, like, clearly, Russ, you also train bodybuilding, and this is no slight on Russ, not in terms of what he said. But essentially, the conversation fizzled out where I said, surely if one wanted to get maximally jacked versus everyone here training largely for powerlifting, you would change strategies, because we can agree you'd build a certain level of physique, powerlifting, or doing largely strength-based movements, volumes a little bit lower, intensity is a little bit higher, specificities there where you're sticking to the squat, bench, and deadlift. I gave this whole preamble, and I said, so how would your training change, or would you agree with the notion that if you want to get maximally yacked, because there's some people that don't care about strength, that it shouldn't just be the squat, bench, deadlift? And they didn't disagree, but they're like, yeah, it's working great for me, and I'm getting the size that I want and all this stuff. I'm like, no, when Jessica just said, if I wanted to be a bodybuilder, I would change my training. It's like, if there was a time, Eric, that I could have just snapped and you appeared, whew, that was one of the times, my man.
Should have put up that bat signal. And then I would have, gotten a flight and been there a week later and what did you need me for?
Yeah. Hey, that would have been the best of all worlds, because you would have been quarantined with me. So, I mean, I really missed out on something large there. But let me ask you, Jessica's like, should I leave? Is there something between
Do I need to be here? Why am I on? Yeah.
No, Jessica, this is just me and my life partner talking. It's no biggie. So I would say, as it evolves over time, what do you want to accomplish, or what are some of the different aspects of your training you're going to change? Because you've basically accomplished it all we know I'm not making your competitor shook when I say this, but a world title is in the mix. But you're only 25, so the world is your oyster. What do you want to do with your training?
With training, well, I do want to hit a 600-pound deadlift as a natural female, and I want that to happen. I actually hit some huge PRs at Canadian Nationals right before the pandemic hit. I think it was like March 8th or something, and then the world shut down. So I got that last competition in. For that block, I've really had everything dialed in. I even gave up my like glass of wine at night every day. I think it made a difference actually, and I started sleeping better because I'm a terrible person for staying up super late all the time. So I think I can build on how I was training with Justin then to add some more weight to my competition lifts. But we'll have to figure it out from there and kind of analyze my weak ranges of motion in order to try and make them stronger. Because doing the core movements will keep you, like the squat, bench, and deadlift will keep you strong in squat, bench, and deadlift. But working on weak ranges of motion is a good way to bring up those numbers.
So I'm just going to come out right with what Omar was really asking. You love building muscle. You mentioned how you want to get into building more muscle now that there's no platform for you to get on. How long are we going to have to wait to see you take not the platform, but the stage? When are we going to see Jessica, the competitive natural bodybuilder, smashing on some other ladies in that side chest?
Oh man, I do. You know what? I didn't want to say it because I was a little scared of getting made fun of by my powerlifting buddies, but I kind of want to do like a 12-week bodybuilding block just to switch things up for a bit, and then kind of do some minimal powerlifting work to keep strong in that time frame. I don't know if I'd ever go on the stage though, because I feel like I would just be awkward walking around and trying to pose, and I just feel like I have so much respect for people who bodybuild and put that much, you're putting so much time and effort into your physique, and it makes me nervous to think that someone's gonna full on judge me on what I look like beside other people. That's got to be a really mentally hard thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned off air, there's two things that would happen if you started competing in physique sports, and only one I can guarantee. You would have a very good shot at becoming a pro and competing at the very high level, world level, and you'd have a not so optional eating disorder. So I can guarantee one of those with your participation, and I'll let you decide which it is. No, but in all seriousness, if there ever was a sport that requires you to be intrinsically motivated and to separate your self-worth from your performance on the stage, it is physique sports, and it is very easy for that to become something that has a negative impact. And that's my whole freaking career, is helping people who do want to do that pursuit and to do it in a way that doesn't that has more positives than negatives. Let's put it that way.
Eric.
But I'm just saying, you would crush it.
Yeah. So I do. Yeah, I want to note something here, and I'm going to be that person because it's like I'm witnessing Mike Tyson, Cosamato, the ability to be a bird's eye view where this or we could go Darth Sidious and Darth Maul right here, where something beautiful is about to emerge. Eric, 3DMJ. What if Eric Helms takes the Buettner, not the Buettner, under his wing? Because you know everything. I guess you've taken. Guess what? You've taken Bryce Lewis. I don't want to put once again words in his mouth, but my man from bodybuilding, powerlifting champion. Jessica's talking about getting swole. She already has the base built. I'm not saying Jessica has to compete, but wow, what a collaboration right there. Just want to throw it out there because you got the tools, she got the talent. That's all I'm gonna say, Eric. I don't mean to do this publicly, but I just did. I'm giving up my spot, Eric. I'm giving up my spot. So I know I'm your like.
So I have that roster spot.
Yeah. I'm your mulligan client. You're stuck with me forever. Like you're like Omar. Once again, you don't pay me. Like I've been helping you. It's cool, but like this eats up a lot of my time. I'm currently eating dinner with my wife. Like you want a physique update? Okay, I'll do this. I will give up my spot if it means that the Buettner gets on the team.
I think Omar speaks for me.
Don't make me give up my spot, but just take her on board. Don't make
So
me
just
do
know, if
Yeah.
you ever decide, you know what, my relationship with my body and food is way too healthy,
that. Right.
and I want to put on fake tanner, and I want to have bikini bite on a suit so that it doesn't come off my shredded body at any points that are inappropriate or shouldn't be seen. And if I want to have 7 strangers tell me that I look good or don't and compare me to other people, if you want to participate in the human dog and pony show that is bodybuilding, I'm your man.
Oh, you sold it pretty good. I think I'm in.
Hey. And but if you do, and you may come away with all these body image and eating disorders, everyone who's on YouTube right now, you can have a lot of plaster trophies painted to look like they're made out of metal. Just want to say it.
Damn.
Yeah, damn.
Hey.
That's better than a world's win. Come on, Jessica, be honest.
You know what? When I was younger, I found some of those in our closet. And then there were these big trophies with a like muscly person on top just flexing, and we're like, oh my god, these are so cool. Are these dads? And then we learned something about my mom that day because she used to bodybuild, actually.
What?
It was like, no, those trophies are mom's.
Damn. Epigenetics,
So she
Eric.
used to
Let's go.
bodybuild. So
This
may have
is your
some genetics.
family destiny.
Your destiny. This is the Skywalker legacy, Eric. It's happening, bro. You're Qui-Gon Jinn. I'm just calling it out. She's Anakin. Let's go, bro.
And I will only say that I'm actually surprised that you couldn't tell from the trophies that it was your mom, because I know what female bodybuilding trophies look like. They do look a little different than the male bodybuilding trophies. Predominantly, you know, they're women. So I think maybe not a police detective is in your future. However, definitely bodybuilding champion if you want it. So it's out there.
Yeah. You know, and if the whole bodybuilding thing's not your cup of tea, Jessica, there's going to be an announcement in 2021. Eric already knows this. And he said, Omar's going to be divisive, don't do it. And I said, Eric, I'm going to go ahead and do it anyways. The body and wellness division I've creating for myself. And that means essentially that anyone can step on stage. We're all winners. I'm definitely going to be competing. Tanning is optional, not required. Your poses, again, you can freestyle, do whatever you want. It basically started from me being a youth with a lot of, booty, so to speak, and jeans wouldn't fit me. And I noticed for a long period of time that it was just a problem shopping at Gap, that they didn't have pants to fit me. And that's why I essentially created Peach Boys, to bring attention to the luscious glutes one develops when training or just genetically predisposed. So the body and wellness division that I'm creating for bodybuilding is going to be the latest and greatest. And so everyone's a winner, and you can do whatever you want.
I thought it was the body positivity division, because there is already the wellness category. We're going to run into some issues there.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, body positivity and wellness. It was, sorry, Eric, when I get excited about this, you know me. It's like
the BPAW, the BPAW.
Yeah. It's going to be big. We need ambassadors. We don't pay. But we do want to use your image and likeness for marketing opportunities and to make money off of you. It's a great opportunity. Everyone's invited. Eric's not invited. He looks too good. But anyone else is welcome to join. So you got options, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's body positivity, but you're not allowed to compete if you actually make anyone else feel not positive about their body. And then they don't have judges. It's actually just 7 people who just stand up and start clapping as soon as you walk on the stage. And everybody gets an award. It's pretty cool.
Oh man, awesome. Count me in for the judges. I just want to hype people up. Like, you go, man. You go. You flaunt those glutes.
That's right. See, you're. I think we need to have her on the on the advisory board for the new division. Yeah, we'll contact you with the details. One thing I do want to ask is, and this is actually a serious question and completely not relevant to anything we've said in the last 10 minutes. Were you motivated to become a pharmacist because of your diagnosis as a type 1 diabetic? Is that part of your motivation there?
Yeah, you know what? Definitely was, as far as healthcare goes, for sure. It was always something I was very interested in. And then I took the prerequisites in university. Wasn't 100% sure, but once I got into pharmacy, things kind of just fell into place. And it is definitely was a good career choice for me.
Very cool. So do you see yourself staying in, because this is the way it is with, especially in the States with lifting. Everyone has a day job. And some people who are lazy, like myself and Omar, we try to make the thing we like that we're actually not even that good at into a profession. And then I tell my wife, like, hey, Barb, I have to go work. And what it really is just hanging out with the two of you and for a couple hours on Skype and, shirking my responsibilities in my family. But are you planning on staying in your current field, progressing in your career, or do you see yourself trying to make powerlifting, lifting in general, as something that you do as your career and your passion as an athlete?
I've thought about starting coaching at some point. I'm not ready for that yet, though, because I still got that student debt. And I think I'd always want to work as a pharmacist part-time if possible. Because it is something I do really enjoy. It's just me. I don't think maybe later on I won't be working as much as I am now. I'm also interested in I don't know if how this would tie into things, but I'm very interested in prescription drugs and how they interact with athletes. Specifically, like birth control is a big one, antidepressants, really common medications like that, and choices for athletes versus the rest of the population. That's just a subject that interests me a lot, but who knows?
Very cool. That's very cool. You could even, would you consider doing more education in pharmacy, maybe getting into like clinical trials like that, or is research something you'd want to do in the future?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I actually got the chance to do a research project while I was in pharmacy school. And basically, they let a pharmacy student who had never worked in a lab grow tumor cells and experiment to see with gene therapy on them. But it was really, really cool. I actually loved that project that we did. It was actually trying to quantify how much of a protein we could get the tumor cells to produce by implanting them with a certain gene. And it was a gene for producing fluorescent protein, so you could see them glow in the dark after. It was really cool.
Look, let's put it this way. I don't want cancer, but if I did have cancer, I would want fluorescent tumors. That sounds
you'd want them to glow, right?
Yeah.
You don't want them to glow in the dark. We like things that glow.
Absolutely. Well, that's very cool. I think that gives a unique insight, and it also gives the trolls more ammunition. Like, now we know not only did you have the secret mission to give yourself type 1 diabetes, to be able to take insulin, which, sure, it keeps you alive. You need it to regulate your blood glucose. It's a terrible inconvenience, blah, 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 whatever. It's a performance-enhancing drug. That's why you're good. You became a pharmacist to make yourself good. And now we know you're actually an expert in gene doping, specifically in making tissue grow more proteins. Wow. The type of Frankenstein labs that are going on in your basement, I don't know where those stairs go that we can see on camera, but I'm pretty sure they go to a place where you inject yourself with the genes to make yourself grow fluorescent muscles. So next time you see on Instagram, watch her traps, folks. And I'm speaking to all of the folks who know what's really up, the people in the YouTube comments who know the truth. See if there is a fluorescent neon hue underneath the skin in her traps, and you be the judge. Yeah, sure, it might be the lighting above her, but I don't think so. I don't think so. Omar, am I off base? Am I talking trash here?
Jessica, I don't want to do this to you, but I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna be Brutus here and betray you, and I'm gonna give the smoking gun to Eric to complete this theory, and that is, I can tell you that in one of our phone calls, Jessica did mention Darren Candow. Dr. Darren Candow. Yeah, the Walter White creatine researcher. And I'm not going to say what she said, but needless to say, she dropped that reference. And for those that know who Darren Candow is, yeah, he is the drug creatine kingpin of northwestern Canada. And that basically completes everything, Eric. I just gave you the last piece of ammunition, so I don't think there's anything Jessica can say in her defense, to be honest.
Man, I just wanted to make myself glow in the dark, and you guys just twisted my words. That's all I wanted.
Welcome to Iron Culture. Great to have you on.
Yep, that's what we do.
Oh, man. The creatine, that is something... I've owned up to it before, though, so I thought it was a given.
Well, I think it's not the creatine on its own. It's in combination with the fact that you are an experienced pharmacist. You happen to have some disease, a supposedly diagnosis which requires you to take insulin, and that you actually know how to make, just do a little bit of magic science stuff and make protein come out of other cells. I'm disappointed. Let's just put it that way, because I think it's just one other tick in the box of very clear empirical evidence. Yeah. Facts over feelings, folks.
Empirical.
We know what's going on here. So
yeah. You know, it'd be really bad, Eric. Like
what?
Really bad. If Jessica, for some reason, started associating with someone that was notorious for creatine memes or references to creatine, maybe had a brand that had a creatine, pro-creatine apparel or creatine positive messages, that probably would be the final smoking gun for Jessica, and her career would be whoosh, done after that.
Yeah, probably. It would be a stupid mistake. Yeah, definitely.
Bad idea. Why would you do that?
Definitely.
Right?
Terrible idea.
You wouldn't be the poster woman for a gateway drug into the most hardcore of hardcore PEDs, but if you were, I'll reserve it for that. I'll do some research once we get off, and if that is the case, then let's just put it this way: you won't be invited back. But I'm going to assume the best. I'm going to use the principle of charity, like I have this whole conversation, and I haven't made any assumptions. I've only presented facts and empirical data and logical conclusions that I've gotten from YouTube comments, and honestly, some things I made up on the spot. But we'll just have to move on from there. Omar, I think I've done the holding the feet to the fire, the neon glowing muscular feet to the fire. From there, do you have anything else that you want to address?
Sure, my man. I'll try and be the good cop to your sexy cop. And I will say that Eric's like, please don't say that.
Every Halloween.
every Halloween. And I will say, Jessica, I'm curious once again, because you've seen now over the last 4 years the evolution of the strength lifting space. You've seen some positives. You are once again one of the figureheads, and I think soon to be one of the thought leaders with the actions and what you do. So what are some of the things that you like to see either change, altered, improved upon, or just things that would be cool to have in the space? Because you joined in 2016, or not joined, sorry, you competed at a very high level, did what Eric and myself would love to have done as a passion, did it, you're like, whatever, I'm competing in track, there's no big deal for you, but it is what it is. What would you like to see changed or improved or brought to the table? How can we essentially keep improving this space?
Well, I would like to see more media coverage of strength sports, because I think pretty much there's not a lot of them that actually do get on mainstream media, and I think that's something that we could work on for sure. I think that's the biggest thing for now. Especially, I think that's the biggest thing.
Hey, I'm a little offended that we're not considered mainstream media, and we obviously have you on, but that's fine. Actually, one question I do have: there's been discussions of a weight class change in the IPF division. What do you think about that? Any thoughts on what that would do to the competitive nature, the breakdown of who's who, where you'd be at? How would that affect you personally?
So they're thinking of, instead of the current weight classes right now, it's 72, and then it goes all the way up to 84 kilos, which is a huge gap. And that's what I struggle with, and why I have to do such a big water cut, is because I'd be small for 84, but I am getting too big for 72. So now they're thinking of getting rid of 72 and doing 69 kgs and 76, which I think is awesome, and it's how they should be. That maybe I'm biased, because 76 would suit me in particular quite well, but I really hope that happens. And as far as mainstream media, I was just meaning TV and stuff, So I'm not throwing shade at you guys. I want iron culture on TV.
What was said was said, Jessica.
Yeah.
And
you said what you said. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's one of those traditional media enthusiasts. Meanwhile, we were going to surprise her with the big news, which is, I'm sure you've heard of another, once again, potentially notorious boxing match that's going to be going on between two strength athletes. Myself and Eric challenged each other to a fight, but no one believed us. because we just said it's going to be on the ground wrestling, and we pitched it at ESPN, and it hasn't been picked up yet. But we were making that move, and we were thinking of putting you on as a commentator, but that's redacted at this point in time. Yeah.
Yeah, we had an interesting idea. We were going to be handcuffed, and we have to pin each other without using our hands.
Right.
And we were thinking of probably using copious amounts of posing oil, just to make it relevant to strength sport. And that's the one critique I have of the Eddie Hall, Thor, Bjornsson fight. It's just boxing. So, to pay some respect, to create that connection, to not be sellouts,
Brilliant.
we were going to first...
Brilliant.
Not to be violent, we're going to handcuff ourselves. So we would just have to use, like our face, our mouth, our pecs and our hips and stuff like that to pin one another, and then cover each other in posing oil to have the connection to physique sport. But we had some other perspectives, I would say, that we got from friends, family, concerned citizens, police, and what might be categorized as content that would get taken down on most social media platforms.
They said explicit, but I don't understand what that means.
I felt like, ironically, they weren't explicit enough with what they meant by saying that, because I didn't get it. But anyway, that's been not done. But I think that does give us some credibility. It's the fact that we were considering such a high profile move that I think we are, in fact, self-crowned mainstream media. So, thank you, Jessica, for that unfair characterization. But let's focus on you. What do you think you would be able to do as a 76 kilo lifter? Would that make just the weight cut a little easier for you? Would that allow you to walk around heavier, train harder? How would that affect your training?
I would just make my weight cut easier, because I walk around, I weigh 80 kilos right now. Actually, 79.8 this morning, feeling skinny. 0.2 or 200 grams lighter than normal. It really makes all the difference.
Just chasing those random poop fluctuations. I love it. Yeah. So you have to lose 10% of your body weight to make weight.
Yes.
How do you find that affects you on the platform? Do you find you're stronger in training versus the platform, or do you handle that pretty well?
I think I handle it pretty well, because we peak well, so I would probably be stronger had I not water cut so hard, but I usually do end up with some PBs on the platform because the peaking strategy is good with Justin. So I just wish I didn't have to water cut that hard. I went on a trip in my last prep for Canadian Nationals, and it was to New Zealand, and it turns out calories do count in New Zealand, even though it's on the other side of the world, because I had the worst water cut because I didn't get my body weight down enough for Canadian Nationals. It was the worst one I have ever done, and I never want to have to do that again. So I really hope to go up to 76 just so I can be more lazy.
Yeah, and that just for those who don't know, I've been part of one of my PhD students, Kedrick Kwan, who works with TSG. He was actually on Iron Culture talking about how much people typically cut, and we've actually done this research. We did it at Calgary for Worlds, and we've also done a huge survey. And 10%, let's just say, that's a lot. And it's really impressive that you can hit PRs while doing that. But for those who haven't done a water cut, especially a 2-hour one, and I'm sure there was probably some actual, you go through some calorie restriction leading into that. It's not all the water cut, right?
Oh yeah, no, I should add that I try to get within 5% of my competition body weight and then cut from there, because anything above 5 is getting to be pretty dangerous. So, I have cut more than 5%, and I did at Canadian Nationals, but I felt so bad. It is unsafe. So if you're above that 5% away from your weight class, it is very advisable to do an actual to actually lose some body weight beforehand, which I do that as well. Yeah, pretty extreme for a powerlifter, I think. I just kind of rely on nutrient timing to help me stay strong, basically.
Right. And I'm sure that's something, as someone who has to monitor and measure and modify your blood glucose, nutrient timing is something you probably think about more than most. And because you're acutely aware of how food affects you. And now it makes sense why you snack on a block of cheese, trying not to get that blood glucose response too much. There you go. But no, but in all seriousness, I think that's a really impressive thing that you can drop weight, water cut as much as 5%, and then still compete and get PRs on the platform. I think I suspect that if you had to only cut to 76, we would see some absolutely monstrous numbers. I should say more monstrous numbers on the platform, and that would be really cool to see. So, personal opinion.
Yeah, that I would hope for some too. I think I could definitely. It'd be nice to just not have to actually do the body weight, lose body weight going into a competition. I would be super excited to see that because I think that would be something else.
Absolutely. Love it. So Omar, I think we've covered all the intended topics, which anyone listening knows we had so many intended, well-structured, planned things we wanted to talk about during this episode, rather than just talking dish with someone we enjoy the company of. Anything that you want to cover, Omar, before we square the circle?
Honestly, I'm just at this point now that it's been about an hour and a half, the PTSD is setting in of what Jessica said about calves. So I'm kind of it's touchy at this point. My memory and my impression of everything. Thought, yeah, sure, Jessica came off well, presented herself, answered all the questions. I think we should just open it up to Jessica and ask if there's anything that she wants to talk about now that you are on, and I'm going to say it, the Iron Culture. It's, it goes Fox News, CNN, whatever your other favorite news outlet is, Iron Culture.
Yeah, now that if there's any other ways that you want to offend us, now's your opportunity. So Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Oh man, I don't even know. What do you guys do besides lifting weights? What are your hobbies? I'm curious.
I'm the wrong person to ask because I really don't have I'm not even going to say a 3-dimensional personality because 2 dimensions would be doubling the number of dimensions I have. I have degrees in lifting weights, degrees in nutrition for lifting weights. I have experience in my job as helping people lift weights. Now I have a podcast about lifting weights. I have books about lifting weights and also nutrition for lifting weights. I have a research review about lifting weights. And in my spare time, I'd like to lift weights. So some people have referred to me as a human. I'd say I'm a weightlifter. So I'm going to pass this off on to Omar.
Yeah, I'll just go. We got this sucker right here. We're doing a little studying. Let's tilt the camera over to the bed, and we have, hold on, what's the record here we see? Shout out Chick Corea's Electric Band. Actually, Jessica, I don't know if you know this, the greatest Canadian artist right there, Oscar Peterson, rest in power, the jazz pianist. He's Canadian, which is why I say it. We got tons of hobbies, myself and Eric. I'm just talking of my own personal ones. It's the same with Eric. Some of our favorite hobbies is just spending quality time with the people that we love, right, Eric?
That is true. If
right?
They lift
the
weights.
People that, you know what I mean, right? The people, you know what I'm saying, Eric?
I do know what you're saying, and I'm slightly modifying it to be, true to myself.
Yeah, no, but I just want you to repeat it back, man.
I enjoy spending time with you, Omar.
Yeah, no, dude, it's same. You don't have to say it. I know it. And so, yeah, what about you, Jessica? What do you like to do besides lifting weight and blasting the trolls?
Oh man, I guess I like to draw stuff sometimes and cook food. That's probably a big one. I don't know if I'd count eating as a hobby, but definitely cooking. Spending time with family and friends as well. Eric, I just thought of something. I think I want you to train me for bodybuilding, so I'll be able to be She-Hulk for Halloween. This is my goal. Woo! And no one will mistake me for Shrek or Fiona.
Awesome. And I think to really lean into it, you're going to need a law degree because for those who don't know, She-Hulk is a lawyer.
Yeah.
Nice.
So you get the law degree, and then I'll train you. That's the deal. I'm just kidding. I will absolutely help you with any hypertrophy training you want. I'm down.
Man, nobody better say I'm dressed as Fiona. I will be upset. That I actually thought of being She-Hulk for Halloween a while ago, but then I was actually worried about that. I was like, man, what if someone says great Shrek costume? I'd be so sad.
What if they said
just
the green
painted
giant?
all green?
Is that bad?
No, that's pretty cool.
Okay.
I feel like he's jacked.
Oh yeah, he lifts.
Male, but jacked.
I mean, that beanstalk,
right?
It's so tall. You got to climb up that every day. Every time some dude comes into your house, you got to go all the way down and be like, "Hey, is that you? No? All right, I got to go back up." So
Right.
it's kind of like he's a climber at least, you know. So
Oh yeah.
awesome. Well, I will absolutely help in any way I can. Honored to do so, and I just want to say, really appreciate your time, your insight. I think we really enjoy giving a kind of like a profile of some of the faces of the Iron game. That's a big part of what Iron culture is, and we think you have an awesome voice as a part of this community, and we just appreciate your time and energy for being on. Omar, anything else you want to add?
No, Jessica, I just want to thank you for being on. Thank you for representing the sport and spreading the message. And we look forward to seeing you on traditional media, ESPN, lifting 600 pounds.
Oh man, thanks for having me on. And I'm sorry if I threw shade at you guys that I didn't mean to.
We don't believe you didn't mean to, and apologies not accepted. So where can people find you, Jessica?
You can find me on Instagram at D Jessica Buettner. And that's pretty much it. Don't find me on Facebook. I don't do anything on Facebook.
Who does, really?
Yeah. So no TikTok, because we have the TTC, the TikTok crew that
They just
they send dances to us all the time. Like they kind of send dance reactions, as Eric knows, to our episodes.
Yeah, we had a bad dance reaction with the whole erectile dysfunction thing.
Yeah.
bad,
Oh,
bad
man.
move by our managers.
I don't even want to ask.
Don't please.
Oh man.
Apparently, well, no, it's not worth getting into it.
Nah, it's not.
I just learned that certain things that don't happen for me happen for most men, and I didn't know that until now. But
Oh, no. Oh, like when you say something that you think is relatable and it's not relatable.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I'm sure. Oh,
So I'd
sure.
say-
There's weirder TikToks out there.
I would say, you know what, no worries, upward and onward for me, but mostly it's just onward. So
So yeah, so that's your only link. So everything else is an imposter. We'll be sure to link that. And when ESPN contacts you, I'm sure you'll be thinking to yourself, "Thank God!" Like I was waiting for an actual source to cover me.
Mm-hmm.
You're the person that gave us 1 star on iTunes, aren't you? That said, and I should read Eric the exact review. Said Eric is smart and Omar's funny, or like so. It's like, but I didn't like it or something, or 1 star, or I forget what they said. The critique was funny. Oh, that's what I think it was. But you should make the episodes 20 minutes long. Not that the banter's an issue, right? I've heard like those that have no taste will say like the banter, whatever. But like the person said, you need to make it a 20-minute episode, and I thought, do you know how a podcast works? Like I get it. I respect. So we see you. 22 minutes, Jessica, because that's how long a traditional news media outlet per 30 minutes, how long it'd be.
Oh man, I love how you're all stuck on the one star review
We're not
you
stuck.
got.
No,
Probably like.
We're stuck together, but we're not stuck on this. Yeah.
Oh man.
well, just once again, I want to say thank you for coming on. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your voice in the community, and we'll be there clapping and cheering when you're with every step of the way towards that 600-pound deadlift.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, that means a lot, and thanks for having me on.
Oh.
Pleasure. Omar, will you take us into the sunset, my friend?
Yeah, it's there's a lot of shade in the sunset though, so it's a little different than normal. But I just want to thank everyone for listening to this episode. You can help us out by leaving a rating and review on iTunes. We do our best to respond. On YouTube, if you want to go ahead and leave a comment, please leave a nice one. We'll do our best to respond. And we'll see everyone in that next episode from now until eternity.